Hello and welcome to last Monday marketing chat for December, the last one of 2025. Today we have an exciting one. I find it exciting because I don't need to pull any stats and do anything. I'm just going to listen and provide a little bit of thoughts. But we thought Paige has to figure out what she's going to do as her marketing campaigns next year. Is she still going to do the same ones that she's done in the past? Or and how does she decide what's going to be? We can never know if it's going to be successful or not, but how do you decide what gives you the best chances on a marketing campaign? So let us plan Paige's 2026 marketing campaign. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So if you watched any of these over the past, we've talked about how I traditionally do this contest called Chunky Baby. And I started doing it in 2019 was the first year I did it. And every year it's changed just a little bit in how I've marketed it, who's come, how many babies I've had entered in it, pricing, all that sort of stuff. And so I went through and I switched CRMs in 2022. So I did it in 2019, but I actually only have data back to 2022 because I was not organized enough before to have all this stuff. So I've got the last 4 years, 22, 23, 24, and this last 25.
And 4 years is a good amount of data to be working with.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we've talked about quite a bit is like when you do any kind of marketing campaign, the more organized you are, the easier it is, of course. The more you can plan in advance, the easier it is. And the more data that you have from years past, the better you can kind of analyze what needs to change. And then like we talked about the other day, as we were discussing what we wanted to do for last Monday this time is like, is it worth it? And so every year I think about Chunky Baby. It's always a big undertaking. It doesn't bring in a ton of money, but it's fun and people get excited about it. And so every year I'm like, am I going to do this again?
I guess we should point out if you're like, I don't know if I have that data. Paige doesn't have that data. For the first few years, she was just going on the vibes. And how do I remember this well? How much do I think this was successful? How much is the expectation that you're going to run it? Because I think it does come with a lot of like, people know that you do Chunky Baby, especially now after, what are we talking, 7 years now that you've been running it? So there is a heavy expectation probably from a lot of friends, family, and people with young babies that you might be running it. But does that mean it's the right thing for your business to do?
Yeah, well, and one thing that I noticed as I was going through these numbers is like, I wish that I would have written more stuff down about what I did each year, because like there's the last couple of years I've done like a deposit fee and it's gone like sometimes it was like for a print and sometimes it was a credit, and I've changed that a little bit every year. But in the moment, I just was like, okay, this is what I'm doing this year, but I didn't write it down. So as I was going back through all my numbers, I was like, wait, what did I do that year? Did I do in-person sessions or did I do web galleries? And so I was trying to remember some of those details. So this is me saying now, I'm going to write it down better so that I remember as I'm doing these marketing campaigns. And my advice, if you're doing something for the first time, is write down all these details of what you've decided you're going to do, so that when you come back the next year and you're like, okay, what needs to change? You actually have that written down, because I always think I'm going to remember these things. And then of course I don't.
Especially 11 months later, or 10 months later, like when you're in the moment of it, it feels like, why would you not remember what you did? But 10 months later, a lot has changed. And one of the things I definitely took from my corporate experience is the sense of doing like a debrief at the end of a project. When you're just working on your own, you don't want to have debrief meeting, but you don't actually need to have a debrief meeting. You have to spend 5 minutes making little notes. And maybe one of the things we can do is give some suggestions of questions that you answer. You keep it somewhere with the rest of the information. Maybe you pull out the information about the project and you add those kind of like insights that you gained, and what was it you did and why did you try it? And do you feel like it worked, even if you don't have the data yet?
Yeah, so I need to do that better and write down more of that and do this is what I didn't, this is what I'm planning, and then a post mortem. This is how it went. Because I like to just like be done with something. Like, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, and I just don't want to think about this for another year. And then by the time you get back to it, you don't remember all those things. So
yeah. All right. Well, and so I think probably it's at the point of breaking down the numbers now. And what we should suggest is this is fun, and I hope if you're listening, this is kind of fun. But this is really important for the second half of the conversation, which will be, and what do we do next with it? So would you normally do this? Look at your numbers to at least to some extent, I'm guessing, even if we're not.
Yeah, I mean, I always try and have some semblance of like kind of what people are spending. Was there a lot of people that had a no sale? They only took what was included. You know, what did most people buy? And the thing to think about with all this is like, I mean, this is me, but like in my studio, I always make a lot more money when we have more options. Like in that sense, I mean, like if there's just a baby involved, I'm not going to sell nearly as much as if there's a baby and parents. There's a baby and parents and a sibling and grandparents. And like when there's more of those iterations that they're like, oh, well, I need one with the grandparents. I need one with us. I need one of the baby by themselves. They obviously like inflate their galleries really fast. So when we're talking about a baby only session, I'm sure that some people could sell more than me. Those numbers are always low. So these numbers are not like wild, but I still think that they are impactful. So since 2022, Chunky Baby Sessions have brought in $47,996 for me.
That's nice.
So yeah, and that's for Chunky Baby Sessions and like the subsequent sessions that they booked because of Chunky Baby. So it's not just the mini sessions. So I broke that down. I did 49 20-minute Chunky Baby sessions, and that by itself was 21,000. So it's like $5,000 a year of like direct from this campaign. And usually I can shoot like 5 or 6 of them in a day. So it's maybe 4 days worth of like actual shooting, depending on how we do it. Right. So it's not great money. Like that averages out to $436 a person. So it's not like great, but it's also not terrible.
And as you say, for you, it's much less than an average client, but an average client takes you a lot of a day to do, whereas these are, you can stack them up. So there are like differences to compare there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, yeah, I would want a regular client to be a minimum order of 1,000 is kind of where like things make sense for me on my volume scale, my overhead, and all of that. So obviously, like each person's going to be different. So some people might be hearing these numbers and going, oh my God, that's so low. And other people are going, what are you talking about? You made 400 per person. Like, that's great, you know? So,
but it's under half of what you would get from a regular one, but also in time wise of the actual shooting, it's probably way less than that.
Yes. And of these, like most people bought my 5-image package. So I'm doing a 20-minute shoot and I'm retouching 5 images. So it's not a massive undertaking of time in that regard. The thing that takes the most time with Chunky Baby is the organization of, I have to take these images, I have to post them to my Instagram, I have to put them in the polls, people vote on them, I have to take all that data down. So there's a lot of admin work that comes with this that is the part that I'm like, ooh, do I do this again?
Yeah, and I think just briefly, we may have talked about this before, but it occurs to me that we haven't explained that this is a competition where the public votes on it. So and like there's a bracket, and so like there's different ways. So maybe just briefly explain what all that admin is, because that's a lot more than just taking photos for people.
Yes. Sorry, I always talk like people know what this is, but basically, so people come into my studio for a 20-minute session. Then we do like 3 different setups for their baby, and then we take those images and we retouch them, and we use a thing called poll unit, where they go in and we put them in different rounds. Like, okay, there's 4 babies in this round, and you go in and you vote for the baby that you think is the chunkiest or the cutest in that round. And then those babies move on to the next round. So we usually do, in the past, I've done like 4 like first rounds and then quarterfinals. And last year I simplified it quite a bit, and that made it a lot easier. And so I think this year I might just do like 1 big round and 1 finals instead of trying to do all these different ones.
It occurred to me that like a lot of what we're going to talk about with the numbers here are the secondary, like the overflow benefits than just the direct ones. Yes. There is an overflow benefit to your social media that a whole load of people are engaging with posts, and that's bound to give you a boost in the algorithm for the at least the next few months.
And another thing that I did last year that I hadn't done in years past is like I said, we use this thing called Poll Unit, which is its own website where you click in and go. So I had put just Poll Unit on our Instagram. And so people clicked and they went to Poll Unit to vote. And my website gal last year was like, well, have an in-between page, like a landing page on your site where they come to your site and you get that traffic that then they click and they go to Poll Unit, but they've come to your site and they see the stuff. So last year I did have that in-between page where they were coming to the site and actually booking from there. And same thing with when I did ads last year, I had them come directly to a landing page on my site instead of directly through Facebook.
Yeah.
So we can kind of talk about the differences of like an ad client versus somebody that's come to me for something before. I have all those numbers too, but that really helped, I think, with like that organic traffic for my website, as well as our Instagram, social media and stuff, that we got more traction out of this contest because of that. So
Right.
all those things are like
a ton of admin that goes on separate to the amount of money. But right now, if we're just looking at like money on the books,
yeah.
So you had 49 sessions.
Yeah, so I did 49 sessions over the last 4 years. And there were 24 follow-up sessions that happened because of those people at Chunky Baby. So about half booked either like, well, so 8 of them were a baby that came back for another Chunky Baby, like not the same baby, but like a sibling came back for another Chunky Baby within the last 4 years. And then some of them were like holiday minis that they came back for. So what I found is that a lot of these people, and I think this is true for most photographers, when you have somebody that comes to you for a full session, they come to you for other full sessions. And when you have somebody that comes to you for a mini shoot or something kind of, I don't want to say gimmicky, but you know what I mean? Smaller scale, quicker, easier, cheaper. They come back for those things that are similar to that. So a lot of these people come back for additional Chunky Babies. They come back for holiday minis. They come back for things that are like of that smaller scale. It doesn't mean that they're not valuable clients. They're just a different type of client, and kind of knowing what type of client you're getting from these types of marketing campaigns can really help as you're bringing.
If your goal for 2026 was to do way less small scale clients and way more, like you want it, like I'm doing 50-50 of each right now. I really want to change it to like 90-10 of the big clients. Running a session like this maybe wouldn't make sense because you're bringing more of that client you actively don't want. So knowing that.
And honestly, like that was one of the biggest turning points for me in like getting my annual income up quite a bit, was doing stuff like this. Because obviously I want those big sessions that are going to bring in 3-4 grand, like everyone does, right? I would like to stack my calendar with those. That would be lovely. But there's just not that many out there that are like going to come in. So if you can fill a day or two a month with something like this, that's not like, it's not great money, but it's also not bad money. It's not that hard, you know, like 50 grand over the last 4 years, basically. Right. Like, and this is, you know, over a couple of weeks in February. Yeah. So it doesn't take me all year. It's not a bunch of money out of pocket. It's really just a time consuming thing for me. So for me, that's worth it in the just like keeping things alive during that time of year. That's always really slow. And
I think the other thing, even though these clients are maybe not your ideal client, right? They're in that, if you have to split it into 2 tiers, they're on the lower tier. Once they've worked with you once, if they're coming back, they're just generally an easier client to work with, right?
Well, and that was one of the things that I discovered too, is that everyone that came back, especially the people that have come back from multiple sessions, they spend more every time.
And it's gradually going up. Yeah. And they're probably easier to work with because they know what to expect. Or if they're difficult to work with, you at least know that in advance as they come in. You're like, oh, this is the client who is going to forget this or do ABC. You know, like you have some kind of expectation as they turn up.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2022, I didn't have a deposit to participate. It was free. You came in and then you could buy stuff if you wanted. That average sale was by far the lowest of the numbers that I have, right? And I know that was I was probably feeling pretty good that year because I know it was a lot higher than it had been before that, like, because the average sale that year was $180.25. It was actually a little bit higher than that, but I had one client who spent like $1,900.
Yeah.
And so she was throwing everything off. So I took her out so that I'd have a more accurate average sale. It was $180. Yeah. But like I said, I had no deposit to participate, and I did a $60 digital option, and I didn't require them to buy a package to get that option. So a lot of people bought like 2 images, 3 images, and that was enough because, like I said, it's just a baby. There's no family involved. There's no other. So they're like, oh, 3's fine. 3's plenty. 1's plenty.
And when you're thinking about this, and this is where there's so many moving parts and you sort of have to try different ones each year, but people will take the minimum you offer. So there is a level of thinking about what is the minimum thing I'm willing to let people buy.
Yes. And that came true in 2024. So in 2022, I did that $60 digital thing. And then in 2023, I had a $90 deposit to participate, and they got an 8x10 print. So they paid $90, they got their print, they could walk away with that. Or I had a $300 deal for 5. Almost everyone bought the 5. So that year, my average sale was $327.44.
Right. And I think the interesting thing with that is you're giving them an option of a low offer, but it's almost like of course they've already paid for that. They're going to want more when they get there because they paid for that with their deposit. And sometimes I think there's that fear, oh, how could I dare assume people are going to take 5? Almost all of them did, right? Like
almost all of them did. Yeah. So almost everyone took that deal, giving me an average sale of that deal, right? Exactly. And then in 2024, which is the most interesting to me, because that was the year that I did a $90 deposit to participate, and then they got $90 off of whatever they chose. So they didn't necessarily get a print. It was the most profitable for me because I can't tell you how many pictures I have in my storage room from chunky babies in the past that I've done these things. Like, oh, you get a free 5x7, you get a free 8x10. They all say they want it. They take it. I print it, and then they never pick it up.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pay drop shipping for all those people when it's such a small thing anyway. Yeah. So I don't offer that. I do for my bigger clients. You know, if they're getting wall art or whatever, they can get their images drop shipped. But for these little ones, they have to come pick it up at the studio. And so I probably have 15 8x10 prints of chunky babies that have never come and picked them up. So that's just a waste. Yeah. So in 2024, I didn't do that. I did $90 off your offer. And then I didn't do any kind of like $300 for 5 deal. I did 20% off, but my like regular pricing for those 5 digital files. So that year, my digital file rate for 5 was $650. So by the time they got their $90 off and their 20% off, my average sale had gone up to $421. So it had gone up $100 just by reconfiguring. Like they're still kind of spending the same amount of money, but it's done in a way that like I didn't have as much waste with like products they didn't really want. And because that digital file rate was higher and they felt like, oh, well, I'm getting 20% off. They still bought 5. So I guess the rule of like the takeaway here is they almost always buy 5 if they feel like they're getting a deal for that 5.
Well, and I guess the question is, because this might be sounding risky to someone who's listening, it is like, well, if you didn't want to spend $421, you get nothing, right? Was there anyone who did that or felt that way or complained about that?
So we did, I did write that down. So 2024 was also the year that I had an associate photographer helping me. And so I think I shot maybe 5 of those chunky babies. It's the only year I've done that before. And that year was the year that we had the most complaints about our pricing. And I think what the problem was is I generally talk to my clients while I'm working with them about like, oh, what are you thinking you want to do with your images? You know, here are some of our options. We show them stuff in here. Inevitably, like a lot of chunky babies just want digital files, and that's fine. But when I show them the prints and the products and stuff, that opens the conversation to, oh, but do you also do digital file packages? Yes, we do. Here's our pricing. Because even though they're getting it in their email and everything, they don't always look at it. So we can send it a million times. And if we haven't discussed it and they didn't look at it, they go to buy their images. They see all these cute baby images. And then they go, wait a minute, 5 digital files is $650.
Yeah, shock.
And they get really mad. So that was the first year that I'd done a web gallery option. And that was the first year that I had an associate photographer. So I think that even though it was the best year sales wise, it was the most unhappy year for my clients because I had the fewest people come back that year for something else. And I had the most calls that I had to deal with, like people kind of being like, I didn't write that down. I think I only had like 3 or 4, but like when you're only talking about like 16 babies or so, 3 or 4 calls is quite a lot of people that are upset.
Well, and I think like part of what this shows as well is that for different photographers, different styles of selling work. And it sounds like for probably the associate photographer you used either didn't feel ownership to do that because it wasn't their business, or that's maybe not a style of selling that they feel comfortable with. And
she's an all-inclusive photographer. Her own business is all-inclusive. So she's not used to having to do that. She wasn't getting anything out of selling for me. She was being paid by the hour. So it didn't matter to her how much money I made or how happy the clients were or what they understood. So that's definitely, you know, that communication piece that you and I always talk about is like, how do you prep your clients so that you don't have upset clients?
Well, and a sticker shock at the end of the day is a shock. And it's because it hasn't, no information has been given. And we talk a lot in marketing kind of psychology about the anchoring technique, which is if you've discussed the higher price, if you've discussed the cost of wall art, now $650 discounted by 20% sounds like quite a good deal compared to the other things that they could purchase. And so just like all of that anchoring that happens before they look at the price makes this price sound better. But if there's been zero conversation, you don't know what their expectations are about how much it was going to cost. And suddenly they see $450 and maybe they thought it was going to be $100. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah. And you have to be careful with any of these sort of things where you have clients coming in off Facebook ads and that sort of thing, where they're just not familiar with your business. They don't know what to expect. They've maybe done, you know, and the other thing is like, if you have, I mean, we have contest in there, competition, we use that kind of language. It doesn't say model, but when you do have something that says model, people expect free. So you have to be very careful about communicating what's included, what's not included, what your pricing is if they want additional. So I always try and make my whatever it is, get them something. So at the end of the day, they aren't going, well, I can't buy anything with that. Like I have to spend more money with you. So my 8x10 print is $90. So if they don't want to do anything, they can still get that 8x10 print just like they have in years past. But if they want to buy more, they can apply that towards their larger order. It also helps with my language. Chunky babies, the last couple of years I haven't done in person, but when I'm doing something like this in person and I'm selling, it helps me as I'm going through things to open up that what would you like to spend sort of conversation, because I say, well, you have your $90 credit. We can use that toward an 8x10 print. Or if you'd like to apply it toward a larger order, these are our options. What do you think you'd like to do? And it allows people to have some control over it and not feel like they're being blindsided by that pricing.
And I think the other thing that's key here that we've kind of like come to a little bit from the side is just that expectation that we don't know what's in somebody's head. And there are so many, like you might be a photographer listening to this going, wow, I would never sell that way, or I would never charge that much. And the reason might be up or down from Paige. That might be, there's so many different ways photographers sell and charge. And unless you tell somebody what your options are, we're left with the assumption they have in their head, which may be just based on the last photographer they used. And if you don't know who that is, you don't know what expectations they have. So communicating and being clear, sometimes it can feel scary to talk pricing. But I think what you experienced in that 2024 year shows if you don't talk pricing, that's when you get the complaints about it. So better to be upfront and start the conversations early than leave it and keep your fingers crossed and hope they'll be okay with price.
Yeah. And I mean, I think everybody's going to have their different opinions about all this sort of stuff. Some people hate doing contests. Some people love them. Some people hate model calls. Some people love them. Like everything's a little different. I remember, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but we always try and get people on the phone when we're discussing like booking one of these things because it is expensive and we don't want someone to be blindsided. And I had this one lady be super nasty to me because she said, wait, I thought this was free. I thought it was a contest. And I said, well, it is a contest. There's a grand prize, but there is a participation fee because we do these photo shoots and you guys get something out of it, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, I'm not paying $90 to come promote your business. And she was so rude on the phone. And I was like, okay, like I can understand why she has that perspective. She's like, oh, I'm paying $90 so that you can get advertising from my baby. But that's not really what's happening. Like,
right. Well, I mean, it is happening, but she's also getting an image of her baby. She's also getting her baby being shown on, and she gets the digital image of it, or like whatever at the very minimum, she's paying the $90, and she's getting a cute, well,
like you are paying for a service, and by doing that, you get this option to also be entered into.
And it would cost way more if she just came to you for a photo of her baby. So, like the contest is count part, right? And I think that's maybe what people, that's all, and there will always be people who just don't agree or like it,
exactly,
or come in for the just hoping to get the absolute minimum. Like you always risk that in model calls and competitions.
Well, and there's some people that, like, I have a couple clients that I know they are coming in for the one thing that's included, and like that's their right. They can do that. I just had someone for holiday sessions that, like, she's come the last couple of years. She gets the one image that's, or well, this year we did two. So she took the 2 images that are included, and that's enough. That's all she needs. She just wants those 2 images.
I think when, like, if you're doing this hoping, we've talked about this before a little bit, if you're doing this hoping for the upsells, you cannot be mad at someone who doesn't take the upsell.
Right.
It's not their problem that you have not explained it properly to them, or that you've offered them a deal with the hope they'll do something else, right? Like your hope is not what you're selling. So,
but I think this takes us to a good point that I came down to with this. So when I was looking at this,
25, what's your 25 stats?
Oh, my 2025. So 2025 went down quite a bit actually. And I think, well, part of that I think is just last year just sucked. This year has just sucked as far as like people are just not spending nearly as much as they did the year before. So I don't know how much that plays, and like if we just didn't have as good, but like the Facebook ads in 2024 brought in great clients. We had so much great success with those clients that came in. This year, they all took the minimum. They all complained about the pricing. Like we had so many issues with Facebook people this year. And I don't know if that's just who we were getting. I don't know what the mentality is there. But it was
like if you did not control where the clients came from, then is that a bit of a red flag of Facebook as a way to bring the people in for you?
Yeah. So this is what I thought was really interesting though. So I did all this math of like, okay, here's how much Chunky Baby made overall from just the Chunky Baby sessions. And last year's numbers were by far the worst. Like not 2022 was lower, but like 2024 is 421 was the average. Last year, my average was 274. So it came down considerably, even lower than 2023. But this was the part that I found interesting. So 2025 had by far the most sales after the fact. So like from people that came back for something else. So I had, I did 11 minis in 2025 and it only brought in $3,700. So not great. And then but from that, I got 2 first birthdays, 1 newborn, 1 family, and 1 holiday mini. And those 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions brought in an extra $10,800.
Right.
So that's the part that matters to me, because those are the clients that like, and some of those, I was looking at the names of those clients. I was like, oh, those are the people that are going to come back repeatedly.
You make another piece of business off them this year.
Right.
And I think that's where, when you think about doing a marketing campaign, it's marketing your business, right? So there's a side of it which is profit here, or like revenue. Here's how I'm going to bring money in. But there's a second part which is all of those overflowing results of, do I get more clients? Am I seeing more on social media? Is, especially in a smaller city like where we live in Boise, do people now start to know there's a chunky baby competition, and they think of that when they think of baby photos, and they think of Glean & Co, and now they're recommending you to someone and they've never actually even used you, but they've seen your chunky baby photos. So like there's a whole load of like overflow things that you can get out of a marketing campaign.
Well, and another thing that I haven't talked about, but like also we do, is we take all those email addresses for people that vote. Yeah. So some of them are grandparents and stuff that are not going to hire us, but they get put on our email list. They sign up for the email list when they vote, and then they get advertised to. So like I had someone that spent $1,600 with me or something over family photos, and she has never come to me before, but she voted for Chunky Baby. So there's some people like that that I can't quite quantify because I don't know exactly how they got on my list. I mean, it would take some serious digging to figure out, like, so maybe I need to like have that as an option of how did you find us?
Well, that's true. Yes, I was actually going to say, because you might find someone takes the $190 image, but they recommend you to their friend, and that friend then hires you for a full session. But the other thing I was thinking was, we love referrals, right? Referrals are a great way. Someone who's used you and their friend sees the image on their wall, and now they're like, oh, that's who I want to use. And they not only like your image, but that their friend says, Paige was great to work with. You should go get Paige to take your photos. We also talk about the fact that they know how you work. So they generally will know if their friend is a good fit or not for how you do it. And they might say, oh, I don't know if it's for you, or they might say, this would be a great fit for you. You'd love the way that she works. But there's a difference between that general telling someone that and then they forget to write down your name, or them voting for their friend's baby and going on your email list. So you're regularly in there reminding them who you are and your name. And at the point that they need a photographer, you're just popping right up within a few weeks in their inbox.
Yeah. So that's a big factor of this too, that, you know, I don't have quantifiable numbers for, but I did think it was very interesting that the lowest amount that I've made, because even in 2022, I did more sessions, but the amount of money I made from Chunky Baby was higher than it was in 25.
Yeah.
But that year it had half the amount of income that came in after the fact. 2023 had $0. None of those babies came back in 2023. Wow. So I don't know why that was, but then 2025 had $10,000. So it fluctuates. And this is what's hard about deciding, like, do you do this again? And what was it that made that number come down or that number go up? And, you know,
and sometimes it's just the noise in the stats, right? Which again, if you know about stats and things, you know this, right? We have to look at that across a period of 4 or 7 years to see whether this is valuable for you as a business on average. But we don't know in any given year if it's going to work that way. We just know what the trends suggest. And so if you ran a competition last year because you gave it a go, and it was your first year doing it, you will learn, like you'll see generally Paige's numbers are going up because she's learning how to turn the dials of what makes sense and what doesn't. Trial and error as you go, right? So the first time you do it, it's probably not going to have gone great. Plus, it may just have been a random bad year in the mix if you had seen a few of them. So being able to track the numbers and not throwing something out just because you tried it once and it didn't work for you, like there's probably things to learn and do different. And unless it's costing you a fortune in money or in time or in stress, then is it worth giving it another go and seeing if it works better the next year?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think it does get easier every year because you have more of that stuff kind of dialed in, and it's easier to put it out there and more people know about it, and, you know, all those factors. But I thought it was really interesting. So I broke down where people came from and why they were at Chunky Baby. So it was almost even split because I had 49 babies. 25 of them came from ads, and 24 of them had done a shoot with me before that Chunky Baby session.
Interesting.
So my total sales for the people that came from ads was significantly lower than the people that had come to me before. So that just tells me over and over again, which I already knew, but like for someone else that's trying to figure this out, like you're retaining your clients is so important because they're already sold on you. They already like you. They know your process. They know how this works. They're already aware of your pricing and, you know, like on board with it. So maybe, you know, like you're going to have sometimes, like I just recently had a client who last year she came for a holiday session. She spent $2,000 on her holiday photos. She was on my schedule for this year. And I was like, great. She's a great client. And she is a great client. So I don't mean this in a bad way, but this year she spent $200 on her family photos. I think what happened is her husband wasn't with her for family photos this year, right? That factors. And she just got a couple pictures of the kids and was fine with it. Whereas the year before it was a whole family thing. So clients can be up and down in their own lane, you know, like one.
But it doesn't mean that next year she might not spend a whole lot more because her husband is there or her parents are in town and they decide to get the grandparents in thinking, gosh, this might be the last time they come to visit. And then suddenly it's a bigger order. Like that's the part that's out of your control.
And I've had people be like, oh, I had a great bonus this year. Yeah, I want a new wall art. Like there's factors that like, I mean, I think you and I can both attest, like there's times where you're like, I'm feeling flush. Yeah, I want that. And sometimes you're like, I have no money. I am not.
And this year, economically across the country, people are probably not as fast and loose with their money because they're not sure what's coming up and how much prices are shifting. And so, yeah, I'm sure that factors into, again, just something that's out of your control, right?
Yeah. I did think it was interesting though, like what the difference was. And then the other thing that I thought was very interesting is, I mean, I guess this makes sense to me too, is that the people that spent the most money on Chunky Baby or like came back to me were the people that had come to me for a newborn session. So I had 15 of those. And so their average spend was $816 versus people that came in from ads, the average spend was, I think it was $388.
And I think that sometimes also talks to how valuable people find professional photos of their babies, right? If they're coming to you for a session, they already understand without discounts that they're going to be spending on this thing and therefore it's valuable to them.
Yeah.
So who responds to an ad might be like, oh, I might get a cute picture of my baby. There's like a different mindset to purchasing.
The other thing that I found very like, oh yeah, like this is a good reminder to me is that we have a couple people, who was it? 5. Okay, so I had 13 babies that we shot for a variety of reasons that were not in that 49. And 5 of them over the last 4 years were models that I had asked to come in. So none of them bought anything. Like they had the option to buy something. None of them did because they were all asked to come in by me. They didn't choose it. They didn't pay a deposit. I used them for, you know, marketing, whatever. They bought nothing. One was a friend from my studio manager. She bought nothing. Right. So I think the telling point there is like, unless people choose to participate, they're not going to pay you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
they're doing you a favor already by they're helping.
So if you ask your friends and family and you have them come in for these things and they model for you, they're not going to spend any money with you. Like most likely, right?
And again, if you have this hope that you're going to put some money in the pot from asking friends and maybe that'll upsell into something, are you risking the relationship with the friend or family? And is it fair to try and monetize that hope or be mad when the hope doesn't come to fruition?
Well, and I think that like there's definitely points where like I know one of these was twins that I liked them a lot and I wanted to photograph them again, and it wasn't about the money. Like, I mean, with models, it shouldn't be anyway. If you're using them for something else, like it shouldn't be about making money off of them. So that part, those don't bother me all that much because I'm going into it knowing that. But if you're doing these sort of things for the first time and you're expecting to make money off those people, just know that you probably won't. I have found though that if I say, I'd love you to come in and I speak to someone personally, or like even write an email that's like clearly written to them, even if it's a template that I'm repurposing and it makes it feel like I'm reaching out to you personally. I remember your baby was 9 pounds. Oh my gosh, how big are they now? I'd love to have you back in for my Chunky Baby contest. It's $90 to participate. You know, we get a new fresh milestone picture. If you don't want to, no big deal, but I'd love to see you. That sort of thing generally gets those people to come back. And then you get those clients that, like you said, like they already value photography. They already have a relationship with me. They're just more likely to spend money versus like, if you put that out there and then they don't book it on their own, and then you're like, well, but I really want you to come in. And then, you don't have to pay that participation fee. It's fine. I'll just do it. You know, you can just do it for free.
Different category in their
They're
minds.
not going to suddenly turn around and spend money with you. They didn't even want to spend the participation fee. So
right. I think this is often the case, and I notice this in my business as a writer, is that sometimes we forget that people would actually quite like to work with you, but they're busy and they've forgotten. And if you just give a little nudge, ask, remember I'm here and available. They don't have to say yes if you do it politely, but they may say yes. They may want, and they may be pleased that you've like popped into their inbox because, gosh, I hadn't thought about that, but now you mention it, I really need a gift for the grandma, and that would actually be a perfect one. So like, don't forget that you're potentially doing them a favor by offering them a thing that they might want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like people like this sort of stuff. They like to show off their babies and they want to be a part
There's
of
really
it.
easy to say no. You can word it as well. And we have different templates that cover these kind of things. You can word it in a way which is, you know, no pressure, or if you're not interested, just send me a snap of your baby, like just because I'd love to see what they are, if you're like, if the timing doesn't work for you. Like there's ways of kind of socially getting out of adding that, making it feel too pressure. If you're worried that it's going to do that sleazy sales thing, like it's your choice and it's your ability to make sure you end it in a way, excuse me, where there's no pressure for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing, so like I wrote down my takeaways, whereas that I made the most money when the deposit was taken off their final order rather than giving them something for free. So the use towards your order works very well. I had the bigger sales from clients who were past newborn or family clients. People who came in off the model calls almost never spent as much. And that it was $100 less than someone coming in off an ad. So it was substantially less per, person that came in off an ad. The model calls, that is. So like somebody came to me as a model, the ad people spent $100 more than them. Right. So it's kind of a tier, right? Like past clients are the best, then ads,
and then models. Yeah, that makes sense. And so what are you planning for January then? What did you come to as a decision? Or
I don't know. So this is what interesting. I did all this like numbers and things, and I still don't know what the right answer is. I still think I'm gonna do it because, like we've discussed already, like there's so much behind the scenes stuff that moves needles that you don't even realize were in motion. And so I still think it's worth it. I still think it's fun. One thing that I think I am going to do this year, now that I've like really analyzed this, is I'm going to first and foremost reach out to every single one of our newborn clients from this year and tell them directly that I want them back and see how many spots I can book before I've opened it up to anyone else.
And because those are the higher likely to spend, that top tier category, right?
I also think the other takeaway that I had is that I really just think that the in-person sales is the way to go. It just makes it so much easier to talk to your clients right away. There's not nearly as much back and forth with waiting for them to pick from a web gallery and okay, now I have to figure out which ones you like. And it just makes it so much easier. So for me, I like to do same day in person because I can shoot it in 15, 20 minutes. I go downstairs, 15 minutes later, we're ready to look at everything and pick our images. And then it's like, if somebody doesn't buy anything, oh, well, it's fine. I spent an hour and a half, it's not that big of a deal. And
their images are going out on your social media. People are seeing them potentially vote. Their family might sign up for your email list, and that might be a sister-in-law who gets pregnant in 2 months' time and decides to use you. So like you don't know all those overflow things that might be happening as a result of it.
Yeah. And sometimes you find out years later, like, oh yeah, my sister-in-law did your chunky baby contest and she was the winner in 2019. And like that sort of stuff that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that like had that ripple effect,
I think what I hear from you that makes me see why it's probably worth doing is you still have fun with it. You're not absolutely dreading this concept. And I think if you were, it would be like, this is not worth your mental health, but you have fun with it. It has a community effect of people knowing who you are and a potential client ripple on effect, so that even if the money is not the biggest money maker, it's not the end of the world. There's still really high chance it's going to impact your bottom line at the end of 2026. And it's at your quieter time, right? You're not replacing a full session with one of these. You're not
Yeah,
really
like I would never do this contest in October.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, it's like certainly.
There's no way.
Even just the last half of the year, right? Just no time after.
Right. Yeah. And even like I think the first year I did it, it was like early January. And then I figured out that like actually I need a couple weeks after the holidays to just like get my mind right. And then I can start doing this stuff, which means that I'm actually not shooting these things until like mid-February.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's like it allows me to give that. I think that the biggest takeaway I found from all this is like keep it simple and like give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of extra time, because you never get stuff done as fast as you think you're going to. And trying to like cram it in ends up giving you lower sales, less satisfaction from your clients, less bookings, like everything is lower and done like poorly because you didn't take the time to do it properly. And so when I allow myself to do it in the middle of February instead of the beginning of January, it gives me that leeway to be like, okay, I've got this thing coming up. I can really focus on it because I don't have a ton of stuff going on in the studio. I can figure out who I want to contact. I can reach out to those past clients and just like, I think I'm, like last year I did fewer rounds, like that helped. Little things that you can like, okay, how can I make this easier on myself to like, if maybe I don't make more money, maybe the profitability of it doesn't go up, maybe even goes down, but at least I spent less time or I made better client relationships. I was able to keep in touch with people that like were important clients to me that maybe I otherwise would have forgotten about, those sort of factors that, because I've definitely had people that have said like, oh, well, my baby's really not very chunky, but we'd love to come to you for their first birthday and stuff like that, that like, I reminded them about those things. I came back into their consciousness. So,
and I think, so this is a little similar, not exactly the same, but a little similar to when I've been working with clients, like just past clients or current clients, or someone who I've had a kind of sales conversation with, but we've not started working yet. If I see something in the news, and for the news for me is like marketing techniques, website techniques, things like that. And I think of them because it relates to what they do. I will just send them a little email with like, I saw this thing. This is exactly what we were talking about. And it's kind of the same, right? Because you're saying, I have this thing that you might love to do. Are you interested in the Chunky Baby competition? It's just keeping you top of mind for them. And even if they don't take that thing, you've still reminded them that you think about them, that you like it occurred to you that their baby is in the right, even that the baby is the right age, they may have the right look. Like, is this something you're interested in? It just shows that you're caring and thinking about your clients. So
the other thing that I was considering this year that is kind of my like, oh, maybe that could work is this was the first year that I did Monday minis. So it was Monday evenings. I did 4 of them, I think. And I did 3 sessions. So it was like 3 sessions in a row, really quick and easy. And I had pretty good averages. Like they were nice. It kept my fall pretty easy going. And so one thing that I was considering is offering some sort of deal, discount, first dibs sort of stuff to those Chunky Baby clients and say, hey, we book out really fast in the fall. We're going to do these limited days. Would you like to book one now? If you book one now, it's X number of dollars off or whatever, and try and book my fall on Chunky Baby.
I like that. And especially as we just talked earlier in this about the fact that if they buy a mini thing like a Chunky Baby, they're more likely to buy a mini thing. By offering them that mini Monday, you're not realistically reducing the chance that they buy a big session from you. You're just kind of consolidating on the type of project that they like. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm kind of bouncing around the ideas of like how much they get off and like what that numbers looks like. But I think like trying to capitalize.
Is it even just that they sell out? I only do 12 of these sessions. Like you get to be the head of the queue if you book.
Well, and I always feel so great when I have people on the books. It's like, oh, I'm not stressed because look at that. I have all these sessions for the fall in February. How exciting is it? Like it just feels good to do those things where, there's so many coming in. Even if that's all I do, I can cover my studio rent, like those sort of things that you're like, okay, it's all good.
Got the minimum.
If it's like when people do like Black Friday sales or something on gift cards, you're not doing the work right then, but you're getting the money right then. So if there's something that I can do in February to kind of balance out the year, because obviously like October, November, December is the biggest time of year, which is wonderful. But then those other times when you're a little bit lean, you're like, okay, I have to be very careful with my fall income so that I can keep things even across the year. But if I can take some of that fall income and put it into February, obviously it's coming out of the fall. Like that's less money that they're going to spend in the fall.
For the year, it's the same.
But it's the same throughout the year, and it's guaranteeing me those sessions much earlier, and I can get some of that income a little bit earlier, you know, to like help for those like slower times. So
yeah,
anyway,
I love that idea. All right, well, I am excited to hear how it goes. Once we get into 2026 and you're actually running Chunky Baby, we'll do an update.
Yeah, maybe like April when I'm done, I'll tell you all my post.
When we get to that point, let's think about what the reflective journaling prompts I can suggest to you are for your debrief, for your postmortem, or however we want to call it. And we would love to hear from you. If you're thinking about doing a marketing campaign, have you thought about doing a competition, or has this given you any ideas on how you might want to approach things and think about it as you look at what the risks and rewards are of doing these kind of projects?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, well, that's us for 2025, if you can believe it.
I can't believe the year's over already. It's wild.
I know. Next time we see you, your studio is not going to be all decked out in Christmas trees and.
I know. I'm always sad when that comes down, though. I like it in here when it's all Christmassy.
I know. Excellent. All right. Well, and we'll see you in 2026.
Goodbye.
Bye.